would you do if the moment you sent your husband a playful selfie with your ex, he answered, not with a message, but with divorce papers? How did a single photo from Paris unravel my entire marriage and turn my friends and family against each other overnight? This is the story of how my carefully constructed life fell apart the moment my husband decided to fight back the right way. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The morning light filtered through our kitchen blinds as I stirred my coffee, scrolling through Instagram stories of my friends living their best lives in exotic locations. Michael sat across from me, methodically eating his oatmeal while reading tech news on his tablet. Same routine, every single morning for the past 8 years. You know what, Michael, I said, setting down my phone with deliberate force. When was the last time we did something spontaneous, something exciting? He looked up, his brown eyes confused behind wire-rimmed glasses. What do you mean? We went to that new restaurant last weekend. I rolled my eyes. That place was 2 blocks away, and you spent the entire dinner talking about server optimization. That's not exciting, that's depressing. I thought you liked hearing about my work. His voice carried that wounded tone that usually made me feel guilty. Not today. Michael, I'm 32 years old. I feel like I'm living the life of a 70-year-old. When Nina invited me to Paris with the girls, I realized I can't even remember the last time I felt alive. Paris? He set down his spoon. When did this come up? Yesterday. It's just a long weekend. Nina's treating everyone for her promotion celebration. The lie came so easily. Nina had mentioned Paris months ago, and I'd been planning this trip ever since I found Lucien's Instagram account. Eudora, we have Ava to think about, and the mortgage payment is due next week. Your parents can watch Ava. They love spending time with her. I stood up, pacing to the window. And we have savings. When do I ever ask for anything? That's not the point. It's just sudden and what? You don't trust me? I turned to face him, crossing my arms. Or maybe you just can't stand the thought of me having fun without you. Michael's face flushed. That's not fair, Eudora. I just think we should discuss major expenses. Major expenses? It's 3 days, Michael. 3 days to feel like myself again instead of just your wife and Ava's mother. Our 8-year-old daughter appeared in the doorway, her dark hair messy from sleep. Why are you fighting? We're not fighting, sweetheart, Michael said quickly, opening his arms. Ava ran to him, and I felt a familiar stab of irritation at how she always chose him first. Mommy's just planning a little trip with her friends, I said, forcing a smile. Like a sleepover, but in Paris. Ava's eyes widened. Can I come? Not this time, baby, but maybe Daddy will take you to that science museum you've been wanting to visit. Michael shot me a look over Ava's head. I knew exactly what he was thinking, that I was manipulating the situation, using our daughter to make him look bad if he objected. He wasn't wrong. After Ava finished breakfast and went to get dressed for school, Michael tried one more time. Eudora, if you need space or time away, we can plan something together. Maybe we could... Michael, stop. I held up my hand. This isn't about us. This is about me remembering who I was before I became half of a couple. Nina's already booked everything. I'm going. The defeat in his eyes should have made me feel guilty. Instead, it just reinforced everything I'd been thinking lately. When had my husband become so passive, so boring? The Michael I'd married had been ambitious, driven. Now he seemed content to live the same day over and over again. That evening, while Michael helped Ava with homework, I called my mother. Paris sounds wonderful, honey. Sandra's voice was warm with approval. You deserve some excitement. Lord knows that husband of yours isn't providing any. Mom, that's not... Eudora, I've been married 3 times. I know what it looks like when a woman is dying inside. You're too young and too beautiful to waste away in that suburban prison. I smiled, feeling validated. Michael thinks I'm being irresponsible. Michael thinks a lot of things. When was the last time he surprised you with flowers? Took you dancing? Made you feel desired? I couldn't remember. He's just practical. Practical is code for boring, sweetheart. You go to Paris. Remind yourself what it feels like to be wanted. After hanging up, I found the confirmation email for my flight and hotel. The hotel booking showed 2 guests, but Michael didn't need to know that detail. I'd figure out how to explain Lucien's presence when the time came. My phone buzzed with a text from Nina. "Can't wait for Paris. This is going to be epic. You deserve this after being stuck with Mr. Excitement for so long." I typed back, "I know, right? I feel like I'm finally waking up from a coma." From the living room, I could hear Michael reading to Ava, doing different voices for each character. She was giggling, completely absorbed in the story. For a moment, I felt a pang of something, regret, doubt, but then I thought about Lucien's last Instagram post, him at a cafe in Montmartre, looking exactly like the passionate artist I'd fallen for in college. Before Michael, before responsibilities and mortgages and the slow death of romance. I booked my flight for Thursday morning. When I told Michael that night, he was quiet for a long time. "Is there something you're not telling me?" he finally asked. "Like what?" "I don't know. You've been different lately. Distant, and now this sudden trip." I felt my temper flare. "So, now I'm not allowed to miss my old life? I'm not allowed to want something more than grocery shopping and parent-teacher conferences?" "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean, Michael? Because it sounds like you're accusing me of something." He looked tired. "I'm not accusing you of anything. I love you, Eudora. I want you to be happy. I just wish I knew how to make you happy." The sincerity in his voice almost broke through my anger. Almost. "Maybe that's the problem," I said quietly. "Maybe you can't make me happy. Maybe I need to figure out how to make myself happy." I left him sitting on the edge of our bed, staring at his hands. The flight to Paris felt like an escape from prison. Nina chattered excitedly about the restaurants we'd try and the shopping we'd do, but my mind was focused on one thing, the text I'd sent to Lucien the night before. "In Paris Thursday. Would love to catch up if you're free." His response had been immediate. "Eudora." "Wow, yes, definitely. I know the perfect place." Now, sitting in the taxi from Charles de Gaulle, I felt more alive than I had in years. The city rushed past the windows, beautiful and full of possibilities. "You look like a woman with a secret," Nina said, grinning at me. "Maybe I am." "Good for you. Michael has no idea how lucky he is. If he did, he'd be here with you instead of letting you run around Paris unsupervised." We checked into our hotel in the 7th arrondissement. Nina immediately wanted to explore, but I begged off, claiming jet lag. The truth was, I had plans. I met Lucien at a small cafe near the Seine. He looked exactly like his photos. Dark hair slightly longer than it used to be, the same intense green eyes that had made me weak in college. He stood when he saw me, and my heart actually skipped. "Eudora." He kissed both my cheeks, his hands lingering on my arms. "You look incredible." "Thank you. Paris suits you." I gestured around the cafe. "This is perfect." We talked for hours. He told me about his photography, his travels, his art. I found myself sharing things I'd never told Michael. My dreams of writing, my fear that I was wasting my life, my loneliness. "You were always too vibrant for a conventional life," Lucien said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "I remember thinking that when you told me you were getting married. He must be extraordinary to have won you." I looked down at our joined hands. He's safe, stable, everything I thought I wanted. And now I wonder if safe and stable are just other words for slowly dying. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "How's Paris? Ava misses you. I miss you." I showed Lucien the message. "See? Even when I'm in one of the most romantic cities in the world, he sends me a text that sounds like a grocery list." Lucien laughed. "Come, let me show you my Paris." We walked along the Seine as the sun set, talking about art and dreams and all the things I'd forgotten I cared about. When he suggested dinner at his apartment, I said yes without hesitation. His apartment was exactly what I'd expected: bohemian, artistic, filled with his photographs and paintings. We drank wine and talked until late, and when he kissed me, I didn't pull away. I woke up in his bed the next morning with no regrets. For the first time in years, I felt beautiful, desired, alive. Lucian was already up, making coffee, wearing only jeans and looking like something from a magazine. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, bringing me a cup. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Michael, 2 texts asking if I was okay. The guilt I expected to feel was overwhelmed by irritation. Couldn't he give me even 3 days without checking up on me? "Everything all right?" Lucian asked. "Just my husband being paranoid." I turned the phone face down. "He thinks I can't survive a weekend without him." "Perhaps he's worried for good reason," Lucienne said with a smile that made my stomach flutter. I met Nina for brunch at a café in Montmartre. She took one look at me and grinned. "Oh my God, you slept with someone." "Shh." I looked around, but the other tourists were absorbed in their own conversations. "Who is he? How was it? Tell me everything." I found myself spilling the whole story. Nina was delighted, encouraging, everything I needed to hear. "You deserve this," she said firmly. "You've been buried alive in suburbia for 8 years. Michael should be grateful you're still married to him. I feel guilty about Ava. Ava will be fine. Kids are resilient. Besides, maybe seeing her mother happy and fulfilled will be better for her than watching you slowly disappear into domestic misery." When Lucian joined us for brunch, Nina was immediately charmed. He was funny, attentive, everything Michael wasn't. When he put his arm around me for a group selfie, I felt a rush of vindication. "Send that to your mum," Nina suggested. "She'll be so happy to see you looking alive again." I posted it to my Instagram story first, then sent it to my mother with the caption, "Finally remembering what it feels like to be myself." My mother's response was immediate. "You're glowing, sweetheart. This is the daughter I remember." Emboldened by the positive response, I decided to send the photo to Michael. Not to hurt him, but to show him what I looked like when I was truly happy. Maybe it would wake him up, make him realize what he was losing. I added the caption, "Wish you were more fun," and hit send. Then I waited for his response. An apology, maybe. A promise to change. Something that showed he understood what I needed. But hours passed, and Michael didn't reply at all. "He's probably sulking," Nina said when I mentioned it. "Typical passive-aggressive behavior." Lucian was less interested in my marital drama. After brunch, he had plans with friends, and while he invited me along, I could sense his attention was already shifting. The intensity from the night before had cooled to friendly warmth. "I had a wonderful time," he said, kissing my cheek goodbye. "Take care of yourself, Eudora." I spent the rest of the day shopping with Nina, trying not to think about the dismissal in Lucien's voice or Michael's silence. When Nina suggested we go to a wine bar that evening, I agreed, posting photos of our dinner to my Instagram story. Still no response from Michael. "He's trying to punish you with the silent treatment," Nina said. "Don't let him win. You're having the time of your life. Show him that." So I did. I posted more photos, tagged our locations, made sure everyone could see how amazing my life was, without Michael's boring presence. It wasn't until I was back in my hotel room that night that I started to feel uneasy. Michael's silence wasn't like him. When we fought, he usually tried to talk things through immediately. The fact that he hadn't even acknowledged my photo was strange. I called him, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter. I was in Paris, I'd had an incredible adventure, and I felt more like myself than I had in years. If Michael wanted to pout, that was his problem. But as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, something I might not be able to control. The flight home from Paris felt different than the one going. Nina was already planning our next girls' trip, but I found myself distracted, checking my phone obsessively. Michael still hadn't responded to any of my messages. "He's being such a baby," Nina said, noticing my preoccupation. "You had one weekend of fun, and he's acting like you committed a crime." "Maybe I should call him." "Absolutely not. That gives him all the power." "You did nothing wrong, Eudora. You went on a trip with friends. If he can't handle that, it says everything about his insecurity and nothing about you." But when I got home Sunday evening, the house felt different. Michael was in the kitchen with Ava, helping her with a school project. He looked up when I walked in, his expression unreadable. "Mummy!" Ava ran to hug me, and I held her tight, breathing in her familiar scent. "I missed you so much, baby. Were you good for Daddy?" "We went to the science museum in the park, and Daddy taught me how to make pancakes from scratch," Ava said excitedly. "And Aunt Tessa came over yesterday and we played board games." I looked at Michael over Ava's head. "Sounds like you had a busy weekend." "We managed," he said simply, turning back to Ava's project. The coldness in his voice was unlike him. Michael was many things: boring, predictable, overly cautious. But he wasn't cold. Even when we fought, he was always trying to fix things, to talk things through. After Ava went to bed, I found him in his home office, working on his laptop. "Michael, we need to talk." "About what?" He didn't look up from his screen. "About why you're giving me the silent treatment, about why you didn't respond to any of my messages." "I've been busy." His fingers continued typing. "Too busy to answer a simple text." Finally, he looked at me. "What did you want me to say, Eudora?" "Thanks for the photo of you with another man. Sorry I'm not fun enough for you." "It was just a group photo with friends. You're being ridiculous." "Am I?" He closed his laptop and turned to face me fully. "Tell me about Lucien." My heart stopped. "What?" "Lucien Morel, the man in your photo. Tell me about him." I forced myself to stay calm. "He's just an old friend from college. We ran into him at brunch." "You ran into him?" Michael's voice was flat. "At a cafe in Montmartre. What are the odds?" "Paris isn't that big, and he lives there now, so—" "Eudora." He held up his hand. "Stop." Something in his tone made me pause. This wasn't the Michael I knew. This Michael was controlled, measured, almost scary in his calmness. "I'm going to ask you one question," he said, "and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. Is there anything about your trip to Paris that you want to tell me?" The smart thing would have been to confess everything, to apologize, to promise it would never happen again, to work on our marriage. But looking at his cold, judgmental face, I felt my defenses rise. "I already told you everything. I went to Paris with Nina. We had brunch with an old friend, and you're making it into some kind of conspiracy because you can't stand that I had fun without you." Michael nodded slowly. "Okay." "Okay, what?" "Okay, I understand." He reopened his laptop. "I have work to finish." "That's it? You're just going to dismiss me?" "I'm not dismissing you. You've told me what happened. There's nothing more to discuss." I stood there for a moment, expecting him to say something else, to fight with me, to accuse me of lying. But he just went back to typing as if I wasn't there. The next morning, he was gone before I woke up. Ava said he'd left early for work after making her breakfast and packing her lunch. At work, I found myself telling my co-workers about the trip, emphasizing how wonderful it was to feel independent again. How refreshing it was to remember who I used to be. They were sympathetic, agreeing that husbands could be too possessive, too controlling. "Men can't handle it when women have lives outside of them," my colleague Jennifer said. "My ex-husband was the same way. He wanted me to exist only for him." Exactly. Michael acts like I committed some terrible crime by taking a weekend trip. But even as I spoke, I felt uneasy. Michael's reaction wasn't possessive or controlling. It was something else entirely. Something that felt more dangerous than jealousy. That evening, Tessa came over for dinner. Michael's younger sister had always been close to both of us, and I hoped she might help bridge whatever gap had opened between Michael and me. "So how was Paris?" she asked as we prepared dinner together. "Amazing. I forgot how good it feels to be spontaneous, to do something just for myself." "That's great. You deserve to have fun." But there was something careful in her tone. "Michael seemed a little stressed when I was here yesterday. He's being dramatic about the whole trip, acting like I abandoned him and Ava." "Is that what he said?" "He doesn't have to say it. He's been giving me the silent treatment since I got back." Tessa was quiet for a moment. "Eudora, can I ask you something? And please don't take this the wrong way." "Sure. Are you happy? In your marriage, I mean." The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you seem, I don't know, restless lately, like you're looking for something." I set down the knife I'd been using to chop vegetables. "Do you think I'm a bad wife?" "No, that's not what I meant at all. I just think maybe you and Michael need to talk, really talk, about what you both want, what you both need. I've tried talking to him. He just wants everything to stay exactly the same forever. Maybe he's scared of change. Maybe he's scared of losing you." The idea that Michael might be scared hadn't occurred to me. He always seemed so sure of himself, so confident in our life together. At dinner, Michael was polite but distant. He asked Ava about school, discussed work with Tessa, but barely spoke to me. When Tessa mentioned that her boyfriend had surprised her with concert tickets, Michael smiled. "That's nice. It's important to do unexpected things for the people you love." The comment felt pointed, and I felt my temper flare. Some people think surprises are important, others think they're irresponsible. "I've never said surprises were irresponsible," Michael replied calmly. "I said communication was important." "Communication like giving your wife the silent treatment?" Tessa looked uncomfortable. "Maybe I should go." "No, stay," Michael said. "Eudora and I are just having a difference of opinion about expectations in marriage." "Expectations like trusting your spouse to take a weekend trip without acting like she's committed treason." "Trust?" Michael nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, that's definitely part of it." Something in his tone made my stomach clench. But before I could respond, Ava spilled her juice, and the moment was lost in the flurry of cleaning up. Later, after Tessa left and Ava was in bed, I tried one more time. "Michael, this is ridiculous. We can't keep going on like this." "You're right," he said. "We can't." "So what do you want to do about it?" He looked at me for a long moment. "I think we should have a family meeting this Saturday, with my parents, your mother, Tessa, everyone who cares about our family." "A family meeting? About what?" "About our future, about what's best for everyone involved." I rolled my eyes. "You want to drag our families into our marriage problems?" "I think it would be good to have everyone's perspective." "Fine. If you think that will help, fine. But I'm not going to sit there and be lectured by your father about commitment and responsibility." "I don't think anyone will be lecturing you," Michael said quietly. Something about the way he said it made me nervous, but I pushed the feeling away. A family meeting would be perfect, actually. My mother would support me, and even his parents would have to admit that I deserved some freedom, some happiness. I was confident that I could make them understand my side of things. I had no idea what Michael was planning. Saturday arrived grey and drizzling, matching my mood. I'd spent the week feeling increasingly isolated as Michael maintained his polite distance, and Ava seemed to sense the tension between us, becoming clingy and quiet. My mother arrived first, armed with a bottle of wine and righteous indignation. "I still can't believe he's making such a fuss over a simple girls' trip," Sandra said, settling into our living room with the air of someone preparing for battle. "Men are so threatened by independent women." "I just want things to go back to normal," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure what normal meant anymore. "Normal for who?" "You were miserable before Paris, Eudora. I could see it every time I looked at you. You're finally coming back to life, and he wants to drag you back down." When Michael's parents arrived, the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. James Vane had never been warm toward me, but today he looked at me like I was something unpleasant he'd found on his shoe. Patricia was more polite, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. Tessa came last, looking nervous and avoiding eye contact with everyone. "Well," Sandra announced once we were all gathered, "I assume we're here because Michael is having trouble adjusting to the fact that his wife is a human being with her own needs and desires." "Mum," I warned, but she was just getting started. "Eudora took one weekend trip in 8 years of marriage, and you'd think she'd committed adultery the way everyone's acting." The silence that followed was deafening. James cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should let Michael explain why he called this meeting." Michael stood up from his chair, and I noticed he was holding a manila folder. "Thank you all for coming. I know this is unusual, but I felt it was important for everyone who cares about our family to understand what's been happening." "What's been happening," I interrupted, "is that I took a trip with friends and came home to a husband who won't speak to me." "Eudora," Michael said calmly, "would you like to tell everyone about your trip to Paris, about who you spent time with?" Something in his tone made my heart race. "I already told you. I went with Nina. We had brunch with an old friend." "Lucien Morel." "Yes, Lucien. So what?" Michael opened his folder and pulled out several sheets of paper. "Would you like to tell them about your hotel reservation, the one that shows 2 guests?" My mouth went dry. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Or about these Instagram posts." He held up printouts of social media posts. "The ones where you're tagged at a restaurant at 9 p.m. with Lucien, when you told Nina you were going to bed early?" "Michael, what is this?" Tessa asked quietly. "Or maybe," Michael continued, his voice still maddeningly calm, "you'd like to explain this text conversation with Nina from yesterday." He handed another paper to his father. I couldn't see what it said, but James's face went white as he read it. "You went through my phone?" I stood up, trying to project outrage instead of panic. "I didn't have to. You left your laptop open and your messages sync automatically." Michael looked around the room. For those who haven't seen it, Eudora was texting Nina about how amazing her night with Lucien was, and how she finally felt alive again. The room was completely silent. My mother was staring at me with confusion and growing horror. "Eudora," Patricia said softly, "please tell me this isn't what it sounds like." "It's not. It's complicated." "It's really not complicated at all," Michael said. He pulled out another paper. "This is a credit card statement showing charges at a lingerie boutique in Paris, 2 hours before your dinner with Lucien. You had no right to look at my personal... We have joint accounts, Eudora. Everything you spent is my business." His calm was finally cracking, and I could hear the pain underneath the anger. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" "Find out what?" I was still trying to salvage the situation, though I could see it slipping away from me. "That I bought myself something nice, that I had dinner with an old friend, that you slept with him." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Ava chose that moment to appear in the doorway, drawn by the raised voices. "Daddy? Why is everyone upset?" Michael's face immediately softened. "Come here, sweetheart." He scooped her up. "The grown-ups are just having a difficult conversation." "Are you and Mommy getting divorced?" Ava asked, with the devastating directness of children. "We'll talk about it later, okay? Why don't you go play in your room for a little while?" After Ava left, Sandra finally found her voice. "Eudora, tell me this man is lying." I looked around the room at all the faces staring at me. Disappointed, angry, hurt. Only Tessa looked sympathetic, and even she seemed shocked. "You don't understand," I said desperately. "I've been dying in this marriage. Michael treats me like a roommate, not a wife. I haven't felt desired or appreciated in years." "So you decided to have an affair?" James's voice was ice cold. "It wasn't an affair. It was one night where I remembered what it felt like to be wanted, to be alive." "One night of adultery," Patricia said quietly. "Don't you dare judge me." I turned on her. You have no idea what it's like to be married to someone who sees you as an obligation instead of a woman. I've been married to the same man for 37 years, Patricia replied. I know exactly what it's like to go through difficult periods. The difference is, I didn't betray my vows the moment things got hard. My vows? I laughed bitterly. What about Michael's vows? To love and cherish. When was the last time he made me feel cherished? When was the last time you tried to make him feel loved? Tessa asked quietly. I shouldn't have to beg for attention from my own husband. You're right, Michael said, and everyone turned to look at him. You shouldn't have to beg for attention, and I shouldn't have to beg for honesty. He pulled out another paper from his folder. This is a timeline I put together. Every lie you told about your trip, every story that doesn't match the evidence. Evidence? Sandra finally spoke up. What is this, a trial? In a way, yes. Michael looked directly at me. Eudora, I loved you. I thought we were building a life together. I thought when you were unhappy, you'd talk to me, not run to another man's bed. I tried to talk to you, you never listened. When? When did you try? Because according to this, he held up his phone, the last serious conversation we had about our relationship was 6 months ago, when you complained that I worked too much. So I started working from home 2 days a week. I planned date nights. I arranged for my parents to babysit so we could have time alone. Date nights at chain restaurants, time alone watching Netflix. What did you want me to do, Eudora? I'm not a mind reader. If you wanted something different, why didn't you tell me? I shouldn't have to tell you how to be romantic. But you should tell me when you're planning to cheat on me. The word cheat hung in the air like an accusation. I couldn't deflect anymore. One mistake, I said, my voice breaking. One mistake, and you're ready to throw away 8 years of marriage. Michael was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was sad but firm. It wasn't the mistake, Eudora. It was everything that came after. The lies, the blame, the complete lack of remorse. He looked around the room. Even now, surrounded by our families, you're still trying to make this my fault. Because it is partly your fault. If you had been a better husband... Stop. James's voice cut through my words. Just stop. I've heard enough. He turned to Michael. Son, what do you need from us? Michael took a deep breath. I need you to know that I tried. I need you to understand that this isn't about one night in Paris. It's about the fact that my wife would rather destroy our family than have an honest conversation about our problems. He reached into his folder one more time and pulled out a sealed envelope. Eudora, this is for you. I stared at the envelope, afraid to take it. What is it? Open it. With shaking hands, I tore open the envelope. Inside were legal documents, divorce papers, custody agreements, a formal separation notice. You're divorcing me, I whispered. I already filed on Friday. You'll be served officially on Monday, but I wanted you to hear it from me first. The room spun around me. Michael, you can't be serious. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I have documentation of your adultery, your lies, and your complete unwillingness to take responsibility for your actions. His voice was steady, but I could see tears in his eyes. I won't live like this anymore, and I won't let Ava grow up thinking this is what marriage looks like. You can't take Ava from me. I'm not taking her from you, but I am asking for primary custody, and given the evidence, my lawyer thinks that's very likely. I looked around the room desperately, seeking an ally. My mother was staring at the floor. Patricia was crying quietly. Tessa looked heartbroken but resolute. James was nodding approvingly at his son. This is insane, I said. You're all acting like I'm some kind of monster. I made one mistake. You made a choice, Michael corrected, and now I'm making mine. He stood up, still holding Ava, who had wandered back into the room. I think this meeting is over, he said quietly. Eudora, you can stay in the house tonight, but I'd appreciate it if you could find somewhere else to go starting tomorrow. My lawyer will be in touch about visitation schedules. As our families filed out, leaving me alone in the living room with the divorce papers scattered around me. I finally understood what Michael had been planning all week. He hadn't been sulking or giving me the silent treatment. He'd been building a case, and I'd just lost everything. The week following the family meeting passed in a blur of desperate phone calls and mounting panic. My mother, initially supportive, had grown cold and distant after seeing the evidence Michael presented. Nina was sympathetic, but seemed more interested in the drama than actually helping. My co-workers, who had been so encouraging about my independence, suddenly found reasons to avoid me when word of the divorce spread. I'd moved into a small apartment across town, taking only what fit in my car. Michael had been coldly efficient about the separation, communicating only through his lawyer or brief texts about Ava's schedule. The custody arrangement was devastating. I got Ava every other weekend and one evening during the week. Michael's lawyer had painted me as an unstable influence, citing my pattern of deception and adultery committed during family time. The judge, an older woman with steel-grey hair and no patience for my tears, had agreed. On Thursday evening, I sat in my cramped apartment, scrolling through social media and watching my old life disappear. Michael had changed his relationship status to separated. Friends who had liked my Paris photos were now commenting supportively on his posts about single parenting. Even Nina had been liking his updates, the traitor. My phone rang. It was Tessa. "Eudora, can we talk?" "If you're calling to gloat, I'm not. I'm calling because I'm worried about you." I felt tears spring to my eyes. Everyone hates me. Not everyone, but people are confused. They're trying to understand how things got so bad so quickly. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I just wanted to feel alive again. I know. And I understand feeling trapped, feeling like you lost yourself. But Eudora, the way you handled it, the lying, the blame shifting, you hurt Michael so badly. He hurt me too. Years of taking me for granted, treating me like furniture. Did you ever tell him that? Really tell him, not just complain about date nights and romance, but tell him you felt invisible. I was quiet. The truth was, I'd been so focused on what Michael wasn't giving me that I'd never clearly articulated what I needed. "He should have known," I said weakly. "How?" "You're good at hiding your feelings, Eudora. You smile and say everything's fine, then build up resentment until you explode. Michael's not perfect, but he's not a mind reader. So this is all my fault?" "It's not about fault. It's about choices. You chose to cheat instead of fighting for your marriage. You chose to lie instead of coming clean. You chose to blame everyone else instead of taking responsibility." I hung up on her, but her words haunted me. Over the next few days, I found myself replaying conversations, remembering moments I'd forgotten. Michael bringing me coffee in bed. Michael rearranging his schedule to attend Ava's school plays. Michael trying to plan romantic evenings that I'd dismissed as boring. Had I been so focused on what was missing that I'd ignored what was there? On Sunday, I picked up Ava for my visitation weekend. She was quiet in the car, clutching a stuffed animal Michael had bought her. "Daddy says you're sad," she said as we drove to my apartment. "I am sad, baby. Mummy made some mistakes." "Are you and Daddy going to fix them?" I pulled over, unable to see through my tears. "I don't think so, sweetheart. I think Daddy is too hurt to forgive me." "Did you say sorry?" Out of the mouths of babes. Had I actually apologized? Really apologized, without excuses or blame? That evening, after Ava was asleep, I called Michael. "What do you want, Eudora?" "I want to apologize. Really apologize, not the fake ones I've been giving." He was quiet for a long moment. "I'm listening." "I cheated on you. I lied to you. I blamed you for my choices. I was selfish and cruel, and I destroyed our family because I was too cowardly to have an honest conversation about our problems." "Okay. I know sorry isn't enough. I know I can't undo what I did, but I need you to know that I understand now. I understand that I threw away something precious because I was too immature to appreciate what I had. Why are you telling me this now? Because Ava asked if I said sorry, and I realized I hadn't. Not really. Michael sighed. I appreciate the apology, Eudora, but it doesn't change anything. I know, I needed you to know that I finally understand what I lost. After hanging up, I sat in my empty apartment and finally allowed myself to grieve. Not for the marriage I thought I wanted, but for the one I'd actually had. The quiet Sunday mornings, the inside jokes, the way Michael's face lit up when I laughed at his terrible puns. The family dinners, the bedtime stories, the ordinary moments that had made up our life together. I'd thrown it all away for one night with a man who hadn't even bothered to call me after I left Paris. On Monday, Michael's lawyer called with the final divorce decree. It was over. 8 years of marriage, dissolved because I'd confused boredom with unhappiness and selfishness with self-discovery. I thought about calling my mother, but I knew she'd just lecture me about making my bed and lying in it. I thought about calling Nina, but our friendship had cooled since she realized she might be called as a witness in the custody proceedings. Instead, I called my therapist and made an appointment. It was time to figure out how to live with the consequences of my choices. 6 months later, I sat in a different lawyer's office, signing papers that made our divorce final. Michael was across the table, looking tired but resolute. We'd barely spoken since my apology call, communicating only through lawyers and brief exchanges during Ava's handoffs. That concludes our business, Michael's lawyer said, gathering the documents. Mrs. Vane, you have our contact information if any issues arise regarding the custody arrangement. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Michael stood to leave, and I felt panic rise in my chest. Michael, wait. He paused but didn't turn around. How is she? Really? She's adjusting. She asks about you, but she's doing well in school. She likes her new routine. And you? He finally looked at me. I'm learning to be happy again. The words hit me like a physical blow. I'm glad, I managed to say, and surprisingly, I meant it. After he left, I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at my copy of the divorce decree. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. How did it go? My relationship with Sandra had been strained since the family meeting. She'd eventually admitted that she'd encouraged my worst impulses, pushing me toward the affair because she'd projected her own marital failures onto my marriage. It's done, I texted back. Are you okay? For the first time in months, I considered the question honestly. Was I okay? I'd lost my husband, my home, most of my friends, and half my time with my daughter. I was living in a cramped apartment, working extra hours to afford the increased expenses of divorce, and seeing a therapist twice a week to work through the wreckage of my choices. But I was also, for the first time in years, being completely honest with myself. I'm getting there, I replied. That evening, I picked up Ava for my weekend visit. She'd grown taller in the past few months, and more serious. The divorce had forced her to mature quickly, something I'd carry guilt about forever. Daddy has a new friend, she announced as we drove to my apartment. My heart clenched. Oh. Her name is Sarah. She's nice. She doesn't try to be my mum or anything. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. That's good, baby. Are you going to have a new friend too? I kept downloading dating apps, then deleting them the same night. No one looked worth the effort. Ava asked if I'd ever find a new prince. Maybe one day, I told her. Right now, I'm busy being your mummy. At night, I pulled out the old albums, Michael and me laughing in dorm stairwells. Our wedding kiss, him holding newborn Ava like the world had just handed him the moon. I'd told myself he was the chain around my ankle. Turns out the chain was the story I kept telling about how I deserved more. Nina flew in for drinks, still glowing from her own escape hatch. You look beaten down, she said. No, I answered. I look awake. We finished one drink and hugged goodbye forever without saying it. One Sunday at the park, Ava crawled into my lap on the bench. Do you miss Daddy? Every single day. Does he miss you? I hope he misses the old me sometimes, but he's happy now, that's enough. She squeezed my hand. I love you even though you made mistakes. 7 years old and already kinder than I'd been at 32. 6 months later, the invitation came. Michael and Sarah. A post-it from Ava. Mommy, please come, I'm the flower girl. I stood at the back of the church in a simple blue dress and watched my daughter skip down the aisle, tossing petals like confetti over her brand new family. They looked perfect. They were perfect. I cried quietly, not from jealousy, but from relief. On the drive home, I rolled the windows down and let the wind hit my face. I once sent my husband a photo of another man kissing my neck, thinking it would wake him up. Instead, he woke me up. With divorce papers, with silence, with the space to finally grow up. It was the cruelest mercy anyone ever gave me. And the kindest,